Hi, everybody. I'm Mackenzie. Welcome to Unfiltered Legends. In each episode, John the Legend Boker talks to pool and spa people, professionals, service techs, pool owners about their experiences. The ups, the downs, the funny, and the sad. Well, actually, they filter out the sad. We're here to entertain, but you might learn a few things along the way. In today's episode, we meet Eric Herman from Water Shapes magazine, a writer, editor, poet, and musician. He was too young to be hippie, missed out on the love. He turned into a teen in the late 70s. It's summer of the backyard. Enjoy.
Okay, well, if you might hear some thumping, and there's been some cursing in Spanish. And I went out there, but I don't know Spanish I've got to do a podcast.
Legend! Today, we travel the world, meet new friends, and discover that sometimes you can go home again. Is this a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? It's just another episode of Unfiltered Legends.
He picked up a hitchhiker after Vietnam, stole all his money, and left.
Y'all don't bungee cord y'all's trash cans?
First of all, we don't y'all's nothing. That is a rough start.
Just got more awkward.
I used to work for Aqua. They're in Madison, Wisconsin. I would only go to meetings there in the summer. But like the level of suffering that they would go through in the winter, I'm like, oh, you guys are so tough to survive in these conditions. Like, no, just suffer. It sucks. So everybody's got a thing. Here, we get 118, you guys get below zero.
Yeah.
We adapt.
That's why I make sure I'm extra fluffy for the wintertime. I just pack those pounds on, get those extra layers in.
I could see where you'd want to go in that direction. You know, that makes sense.
Don't enable him.
Oh, now, stop right there. I am a famous enabler. That's all I do for a living is enable others. I get them talking. That's what I really do for a living.
Sure.
I get other people talking. So it's always weird to be on the other end of the interviewing thing.
Well, now you can see how the professionals do it, so get ready.
Oh yeah. I know. I need that perspective. Definitely. My name is Eric Herman. I am editor of Water Shapes magazine. It's a fully online digital resource for the pool spa, construction, design, engineering side of the business. I've been in the industry since mostly, a little bit off and on, since 1989. I started out as an associate editor with Pool and Spa News way back then, 31 years ago. Shoo! I left the industry for a while and was hired to be Water Shapes magazine's editor when it started, when it was a print magazine, and I was editor of that for 11 years. Then I moved on to Aqua magazine. That's a whole other story, but I was with them for 8.5 years as the senior editor. And now, over the last year and a half, I have been back in my old job as editor of Water Shapes, which is, like I mentioned before, a purely digital publication. So that's who I am and what I do. I've been a trade journalist in the pool and spa industry for a long time. Could you know what? Somebody just did on my doorbell. This is edited. Give me like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and we're on a roll too. Hold on.
No. This part is not edited. I did, unfortunately, lose my voice at youth baseball this weekend. So we're doing the best we can for now.
So we've all got issues.
We all have issues. And one of the names that goes along with your name through your career is Jim McCloskey.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me who Jim McCloskey is?
Sure. Jim hired me at Pool and Spa News. He was the editor of Pool and Spa News and saw something in this 29-year-old kid and decided to bring me in to it. And He was the publisher of Water Shapes magazine. You can't talk about water shapes. He made up the word water shapes. I was in on the discussion, but he came up with the term. Jim was the publisher of Water Shapes from the beginning up until last year when he retired. He is one of the true unsung heroes of the industry. He's a brilliant guy. Publisher, writer, editor, a true mentor of mine. I consider Jim a big brother. I love the guy. We're like family. Jim, he had a vision for the industry that what we were dealing with was something beyond just pools and spas, that we really should be connected to the greater landscape, outdoor design, outdoor entertainment, experiential side of it was a broader industry concept. And that's what Water Shapes started out as, and that's what it is to this day. It has its heart and soul in pools and spas, but it goes into a much broader territory. And Jim was really the mastermind behind that. I was his cohort through all of it. I really built the editorial content of Water Shapes, working hand in hand with him. We went on an adventure together for a long, long time. We also did some things outside of the industry. We did a antique restoration refinishing magazine for several years together, and that's a whole other story. But so yeah, Jim McCloskey very quietly went about his business for many years, changed the industry.
It sounds like a common thread, kind of a passion you have for the aesthetic. And obviously you work in a written form, but you're really describing a lot of visuals in this.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's we've always looked at it as water shaping as a artistic medium. You know, it's an architectural medium. And so yes, the aesthetic side of it is, I think of aesthetics are part of the experiential side of it. And that's really what drives the existence of the entire industry, is that people love being around water. It's a very compelling art form to design with water and to learn how water behaves and how to make it beautiful, and also how to make it something you want to immerse your body in. So the aesthetics of pools, spas, and other types of water shapes, as we call them, is the key to why they're such an integral part of our lives. And I'm just kind of an artsy dude anyway, you know. It's like, I like the artistic side of it. I love the beauty of it. I'm a hopeless romantic, and water has all of that stuff in it, you know. But that said, there's also the yin and the yang. Water Shapes has also always been a pretty technical publication. We understand, you know, the aesthetics are crucial, but so is like how to build the darn things and design them and engineer them and service them, because water is a wily beast. You know, there's no other material like it. The science of it is on an equal footing, I believe, with the aesthetics. Yeah, I play uke every day. It's one of my things. I don't really play for other people. I just do it because it's fun.
This podcast could open up some doors here, so just beware, you know.
Yeah, I play guitar too, but you know, I've always really sucked at guitar, and I don't know why. I guess no talent would be the thing. But for some reason, ukulele really got into. I got into it when we lived in Santa Cruz. There was like a ukulele club, and it was all these senior citizens would play at this band shell right by the beach. It was like all these grandparents out there rocking the uke, and I got really inspired. And so I bought a uke, and then it was really great in Washington. I would take our Labradoodle and the uke for walks out in the forest. And people would ask me, what do you do up there? I go looking for Bigfoot. And that was what I would tell people I was doing. And what it amounts to was looking for Bigfoot was just going for a walk with the dog and the uke. Bigfoot never showed up.
You know, he might have been a guitar fan, so that's a lesson for you.
I was wondering, you know.
Is the chlorine shortage giving you heartburn? If so, reach for borates. Borates, like those in Protein Supreme. They help keep water balanced so your sanitizer works better. They work with all sanitizers and they're the perfect complement to salt chlorine pools. Ask your supplier about Protein Supreme or Protein Supreme Plus. Visit proteinpoolcare.com to learn more.
I think a lot of people in industry, as we talked earlier, know you as the writer with the guy with the hat. That every time you see that picture, you know you're getting.
You want me to go get the hat?
No, I don't. You don't have to get the hat. I'm sorry, you don't have to get the hat. Tom Landry always did his interviews in a hat. We're just saying that. But so we know that you see that picture, you see the name, and you're going to get 2,000 words, and it's going to be a great article. Were there certain subjects that you were more drawn to, or does the industry provide enough as a writer that you kind of saw a great article every time, or was it a struggle sometimes?
Well, it is a struggle sometimes. The amount of material that I've had to generate over the years is scary. There's, you get kind of precipitous about this, but I'm still freaked out by the blank page. I've written thousands of articles for lots of subjects, and still, when I faced a blank page, I got up this morning and I was looking at what am I going to title this article. But the world of water is a protean subject. There's so much to it. There's so many different aspects of it, which is why Watershapes is a lot of fun, because we go into a range of stuff, from how good swimming and hot water therapy. We know it's good for us, but science has really uncovered in recent years why and how many different ways it's good for us. You guys are into the chemistry thing. I've cut my teeth in the industry covering chemistry and plaster issues. I did an article last year before I switched over when I was still at Aqua about expansion joints in concrete. I literally got all excited about an article about cracks in concrete. Once you kind of scratch the surface and really dive into it, there's almost always going to be something interesting. And water, just how to take care of a pool and spa. I've seen in your podcast, you talked about to take care of a pool or to build a pool. It's really an amalgam of disciplines. And so as a writer, you can go down all of those and find different aspects. I always am working with people that know more about the subject than I do. So it's like being a professional dilettante. Everything kind of blows my mind. But there are subjects, health and fitness of water is one of them. Water is a resource, writing about like the drought. And we do that in Watershapes. We write about the broader world of water. And every once in a while, some weird subject will get me. I did a couple articles a while back on biofilm. Man, I could do a whole hour on biofilm. It's the most fascinating subject there is. Slime. And it's ubiquitous. And with it, see, I'm already getting excited as we talk because I mentioned biofilm. And so, and it's there's good reason I'm so fascinated by it, but it's this whole universe of life that exists around us, and we're not even aware of it. It's like Whoville run amok.
I love it. That's a great name.
So, yeah. And I have cornered people at events and talked about biofilm. Poor Jana Oringer from the National Blasters Council. One night in Texas a couple of years ago, I cornered her at a party, and I talked to her about biofilm for an hour. And you could tell she was with me for the first 40 minutes. I kind of wore out my welcome on that one. But anyway, there's a lot of subjects are really fascinating. The whole design of bodies of water, all aspects of it.
Maybe you could touch on, one of the big things that is really now becoming more and more popular are these natural pools, right?
Natural swimming pools, yeah.
They create an ecosystem, which is everything as a chemical guy, we don't want, right? We're trying to kill the green stuff. And in these natural pools, You're trying to create this ecosystem to sanitize and make sure things are working better naturally.
First of all, it is a completely different universe in terms of how you treat the water. Swimming pools and spas or hot tubs, you have a kind of a scorched earth chemical approach to sanitizing water to make sure that it's safe. So it seems counterintuitive that you could do that with plants and bacteria. But the way to think about a natural swimming pool, I think, is that, ponds and streams, whether they're man-made or natural, have been treated just biologically forever. So, once you go down a path like that, you can just go blammo and go off into a whole universe.
Enjoy the show? Stay on the know on all Legendary Pools and Spas tutorials, interviews, and articles by following Legendary Pools and Spas on Facebook at LegendaryPLS. Have an idea for an episode or want to learn more about a topic? Shoot us a message. Click like and follow Legendary Pools and Spas on Facebook at LegendaryPLS.
Pools in the broader world, that's more common than the way we do it in pools and spas. All of nature does it that way. And many, many man-made bodies of water do it that way. And that whole thing leads to some fascinating stuff because it's all kind of based on wetlands effect, chemical reuptake of, pollutants that plants thrive on. And so it's led to the development of things like floating islands and constructed wetlands and stuff where water purification and hydrology uses those processes on a mass scale. Calling it a natural swimming pool is, an iteration of that. And it's kind of a contradiction in terms to some people's mind.
So how much of growing up on the West Coast and dealing with water shortages, how much of that influences what you do today?
Well, a lot. Growing up, I'm from Southern California where I've lived most of my life. I grew up in swimming pools and going to the beach. Wasn't exactly a year-round thing, but close to it, and my entire life. So, the whole affinity for water and pools and the ocean and Colorado River and lakes and stuff has been a defining aspect of my entire life. So it's kind of appropriate I fell into this specialty. As far as drought, and Southern California is a desert. The scarcity of water has defined the entire historic development of the Southwest United States. California is water. The issues surrounding water are all-encompassing and always with you. And when you go through these periods of 4 or 5, 6 year droughts, and people's lawns start dying and you start worrying about the viability of the water supply, like, are we really water secure? It puts it in a perspective that's a big deal. We take our water security for granted in this country and in the modern world. And that's actually historically a relatively new thing. The constant availability of potable water and the availability of sewage treatment makes our entire society possible. And so when you live where that supply becomes in question and the reservoirs start turning into mud pits and the snowpack doesn't exist in a dry year, and you think, wow, and now they're already cutting back water allocations to farmers. And that, then the whole agricultural aspect of it is a whole huge thing unto itself. And so, yeah, it is a defining aspect of my life experience, the scarcity of water.
I actually was just rewatching Chinatown this week, and
great movie,
a film based in the 20s and 30s about water scarcity at California, and that story could be retold every decade with the same actor. And as a young man, mid-70s, Southern California, you enroll Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
What were your Fighting Titans? What was your aspiration at that time? You're not a flower child, I don't believe. What is a young man in Southern California who wants to be a journalist? What was the reason?
Okay. I'm a surfer, stoner, punk from the suburbs. Skateboarder, malcontent. I grew up in the late 70s, post hippies, when, not caring about anything was the ethos of the time. This was an era of, like, the people I grew up with were the biggest smartasses in the world, There was a guy when I was growing up that went by the legend. Like, the amount of that he took, the trash talking was just epic. And one time he said, "Hey man, I've been called that my entire life." I'm like, wow, that kind of undercuts the meaning of legend. Like, there was an 11-year-old that went by the legend. Like, how do you get that handle? Like, do you call him Mr. Legend? Does he go by just the? Yeah, that's the type of. It was Darwinian in terms of you had to survive by the list. So, 1979, enrolling in Cal State Fullerton. It was close by. I could afford it. I always liked writing. I gravitated towards communications, and I was really into chasing girls and leading a hedonistic, indulgent lifestyle. So I kind of majored in partying at first, but then I got serious later when I realized that, this information thing's really fun too. I always kind of viewed like education as it's really the ultimate cure to boredom. People are bored in school. I was always turned on by school because I'm curious about everything. The phrase, "Wow, that's effing trippy," in my brain runs through my brain like 100 times a day. Sometimes it gets on a loose. Wow, that's effing trippy. The serious answer is I view journalism and writing as license to exercise my insatiable curiosity about life. Starting a writing career is not like you land a job. You kind of have to fight your way into it. So I did all sorts of different writing tasks. I worked at the loading dock at Mervyn's was my first job out of college. But my first articles I had published in 1985 in Orange Coast magazine. I wrote, my first article ever was about geodesic dome homes. And then I wrote an article about beer. The beginnings of the micro-brew thing were back then, and I wrote a big article about that. And then I wrote for a whole bunch of other magazines that don't exist anymore. And everything was changing because that's when you had the onset of personal computing. When I first started at Pool and Spa News in 1989, just a few years after that, they were still doing the layouts on paste-up boards with like X-Acto blades and rubber cement. And it was there that the whole thing switched over to a computer network. And so, I've been kind of riding that development ever since. I started working exclusively out of my home in 1995. And the whole company that I did with Jim McCloskey, everybody worked out of their home. And so we were kind of dealing with the early stages of email and transferring files and the beginnings of the internet and all that stuff. So, telecommuting has evolved dramatically. But yeah, that was the trailhead of the information age, right? When it was really personal computing was starting to happen. And so that I started out working on a typewriter. What's that? I would be terrified to do that now. Wow, you mean that if I hit the button, it stays there permanently?
Well, how long did it take to transfer those files on a dial-up network?
We actually would fax documents. When we first started, we would fax documents and then scan them on the other end. We didn't actually email Word docs at first. That changed pretty quickly because the obvious lameness of that became. But and then we used to mail CDs with images. Then FTP websites became available, and that turned into share a file and Dropbox and all that stuff. So yeah, but the old dial-up days, that was that was interesting, and things did move more slowly than they do now. I have been the guy that goes out into the world and feeds the beast. I was editor of Watershapes from the very first issue through the very last print issue. Then we did another magazine for a while called Land Shapes, but I was always the content guy. That was what I was doing at Pool and Spa News. I was a content generator. I'm a guy that goes out into the world and does what it takes to find the story. As the editor, I plan the content for Watershapes, working hand in hand with Jim. But he gave me a lot of free rein in terms of, topics and people that we were working with. The print years of Watershapes were really wonderful because we really were doing something truly different. Half of our readership has always been landscape architects. We have as much in that side of the water shaping industry as the pool side. I think right now, more than half our readers are landscape architects. So, kind of trying to fuse that, create that giant Venn diagram really was my job. I do have lots of humorous ways that I describe what I do for a living. You ever see Little Shop of Horrors?
Oh, yeah.
The movie or the play? All right, so the premise is there's this giant flesh-eating plant, right? Audrey. And the Rick Moranis character, the caretaker, has to feed Audrey fresh meat, otherwise it's going to eat him and his girlfriend. Well, these magazines are Audrey, and I'm the Rick Moranis guy constantly feeding it. Otherwise, I will be consumed by it. So it's a constant state of desperation. There's all these analogies. Sometimes it's like you work with all these people in the trade that aren't professional communicators, and they have all these little treasures. And so they didn't want to come out and expose. So I was have to go get them to come out of their burrow, and so that they would share their treasures with the world. So I lead a psycho existence, but it's a lot of fun.
From what we've been doing with these podcasts and the videos before, it's tough to create content that's interesting, that people want to hear about or see. Not everyone's a winner. Sometimes there's some duds in there. So I applaud you for what you do.
Well, I really appreciate that. And content generation is challenging. Some people are cut out for it, and others aren't. No, I'm not. You guys are doing a great job, right? And I applaud you for what you're doing. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of places to put stories. So I'm competing against a lot of other people that want the stories that are out there. That makes it tougher as well. And in this business, it's what have you done for me lately? It doesn't matter that I've done 30 years of writing for this industry. What's the next story? And that's that blank page thing. Anytime you talk to somebody about how they make a living and are fully present with them, which is a very Zen kind of thing, mindfulness, there's all this interest that comes out. So most people that are engaged in their line of work on some level can tell a story about it. There's usually going to be something that qualifies as a technical aspect of that, practical aspect of it, logistical, organizational. All of that stuff is expressed through the way somebody does it. It's a sad person that can't tell a story about how they spend their working days. One of my biggest influences was a food writer by the name of MFK Fisher. She would explain how to make these great dishes. But it would always be in context of her travels, where she was and the people she was with and why they were using the ingredients they used. And so it was beyond just writing about food. It was about writing all this whole experiential stuff that surrounds it. She was a really fabulous writer. She was writing in the first person and sharing her experiences as much as she was telling you how to fry an oyster. One of the aspects of what I've done is most of the stuff in Watershapes, and a lot of stuff I did in Aqua, it's in the first person. The vast majority of work I've done appears under bylines by people in the industry, which means it's not a secret anymore that I ghostwrite a lot of these things. But it's always in the I, first person, the I, the we. And I've always really liked that style of writing because it's sort of from the horse's mouth. I'm less a fan of third person reportage, where you have by Eric Herman and I'm quoting 5 people, moving in and out of different quotes. And I like putting other people forward, helping them tell their stories. and being behind the scenes. I find that the most gratifying mode of operation. And so I've kind of had a hand in elevating the profile of a number of people in the industry over the years. Kind of been a star maker.
Well, tell me your first person narrative of going back to Water Shapes, working with your son, getting the look and feel of the whole operation up to today's standards. What is that?
Yeah, it's been amazing. First of all, thank you for mentioning my son, Brett Herman. We had a need in Watershape University for somebody with a really particular skill set, somebody who was really digitally savvy, technically savvy, had an education background, and oh boy, it wouldn't hurt if they had a water background. As it turns out, my son has a background in online education. He's also a former water polo player and swim instructor, teaches little babies how to be safe in the water, and being of his generation is technically savvy. So I was like, oh man, Brett would actually be a good fit. And about a month later, I get this email saying, oh, by the way, we hired Brett Herman today. So I've been working with my son since last August. That's been fantastic. I was very happy in Aqua. And in the same month last year, the end of February, we moved from Western Washington State to Palm Springs. And at that exact time, I switched jobs. And I'm all like toiling by myself, having to learn all this new stuff. I'm completely insecure and feeling old and stupid. And all the people around me are so smart, So while I was really, really happy to be back doing Water Shapes and having complete creative control over it, it was also really, really hard. So I've had to learn a lot of new tricks over the last year and a half. And so far, so good.
While you were with Aqua, you worked with Scott Webb.
Yeah, great.
And we interviewed him before. We've known him for a few years. Great guy. I talked to him this morning. He was curious if you had finished your book about people who are turning into their dogs.
Oh man, I need to just shut up when I talk to people sometimes. Yeah, I have a bunch of unfinished stories. The answer is no, I have not finished that story. It was called The Dog People of Capitola, and I was writing about these neighbors that I was convinced were like these wizard people that were transmortifying humans into dogs. And for about a year, it seemed like a really good idea. And then these guys were actual chimney sweeps.
Wow.
That were doing the Jerry Garcia thing. Yeah, and they hated my guts. And I don't know why. I'm really nice. But they didn't like me. And so I wanted to, So, wow, Scott really remembered that. Scott's one of my best friends. I love Scott. And the folks at Aqua, they were so nice to me. It was really a tough decision to leave there. I had a good thing going there, Sean Gahagan, the publisher, the whole staff. They're like family to me, too. And that's one of the great joys is that I've worked with just the best people. And I still do some writing for Aqua. I kind of a guest blogger every once in a while. One of the things I've done was I used to do like music journalism. Did it professionally. I wrote for rock reviews and went to shows and stuff, mostly in LA. When I was 5 years old and my aunt would babysit me in the afternoon, she discovered that the only way to shut me up was to play music. And so in the early 60s, I was rocking out to the Beatles and Johnny Rivers and Sam Cooke and James Brown and country music. And so I've just been a music fanatic my whole life. And I love both the Grateful Dead and the Eagles. Probably a little closer to the Grateful Dead vibe. The Eagles are a little corporate. And I've been to quite a few Dead shows. I wouldn't say I'm a Deadhead, but, I've definitely gone into that realm extensively in the past and all that entails. I met a guy once that led these Bigfoot expeditions into the Olympic National Park. We lived right by the Olympic Mountains, and he would take these camping trips. like on TV, up into the mountains, and they'd go bang on wood. And so I said, okay, dude, and so I was eating lunch next to him at this diner I used to go to, and because I would go seek out people because I was so lonely, right? So I'd be the weird guy, say, hey, how you doing? And I said, come on. He's like, oh, I can tell you're cynical. I said, well, everybody's got a camera in their pocket now, and there's no evidence. I mean, he's all, no, we know why. Bigfoot is an intergalactic tourist that comes here through a breach in the space-time continuum, a portal, and is only here for very short periods of time, and they're observing us, and they don't like us. I'm like, nolo contendere, brother, yeah, all right, you got that figured out. I said, interesting that you would know this. And he goes, hey, man, people believe in things they can't prove all the time. Bigfoot is gone!
As we're wrapping up here, how do we find out about water shapes? Where do we go?
Watershapes.com. Go to watershapes.com, takes you right to the homepage. If you're not already signed up for our monthly editions, which is a newsletter basically, a sign-up field will come up. Right there on the homepage, there's always 9 articles. We rotate a lot from the past and present. And so, yeah, watershapes.com. It's that simple. Go look at what I've been up to for half my life.
Well, awesome. Eric, thank you for shaping the way we think about backyards and water since, I'm going to say since 1976. I'm going to go that far back. I'm sure you had something published then, maybe on a bathroom door. It's improved every year, and it's some of the best articles you'll read about backyard and water. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. This has been a real pleasure, and I appreciate you indulging in this talk, all this stuff. I hope we can do it again. We'll talk more
Absolutely.
We'll talk more about you guys next time. I want to interview you.
Well, come out and see us.
I'm the interviewer here, man.
Get out of the house sometimes and come and see us. Most of us will be in Dallas for the show.
I'll be in Dallas. We will embrace each other vigorously.
Well,
I'm a hugger, man. I'm fully vaxxed, and I'm a hugger. Look out. All right, guys.
Awesome.
Rock on.
Thank you.
I hope we can do this again in some time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Take care.
Unfiltered Legends is recorded using Squadcast and Zencaster. Our show is hosted by Podbean, edited on Adobe Premiere Pro with licensed music from Soundstripe. How do you like the show? We want to hear from you. Contact us at legend@havilandusa.com or leave us a message, 616-365-9515. Unfiltered Legends is brought to you by Haviland Pool & Spa. Creative pool chemistry since 1968.